Next we're gonna paint a strawberry, and I have quite a lot of room left here, so I'm gonna make my strawberry pretty big. Just gonna sketch out a strawberry shape, wider at the top and narrow at the bottom. And do a couple leaves here. They're kind of flat as they go around, and then there's always a couple that are standing up in a little stem. And then I'll erase the line of the strawberry in there. And then the only detail I need to sketch in now are some seeds. I'm gonna do that. They're just these little lines. I'm gonna do them kind of in rows as it goes across. There will be some that are on the very edge, and that's fine. It's good to put those there to make it look a little more realistic. And then when we paint, we will paint and leave this pencil line white. We'll paint a little circle, kind of like where I'm drawing here. We'll leave a little white around it so that we can go back and erase these lines. The seeds are kind of a yellowish green color. And we'll paint those in absolutely last. So we need a couple of reds. The main red will be pretty bright. Start with my reddish orange over here. It's kind of dark orange. And then the other reds will be variations of that. And then we'll need a couple different shades of green. So I think I'll put this in 3 places here. And then I'm gonna add a darker red to it, to one. And I'm gonna add a little bit of purple. Well, I'll add a little of this dark blue. I want it to be just a little bit purpley for some of the shadow and darker spots. And then I'll take this kind of fire engine red, cherry red, and we'll use that pretty much straight out, just a little bit watered down. And then I want just a little bit of white for this one. I love adding white. It's a little bit controversial in the watercolor world, but I really do like the shade that it makes. And it's easier to make that shade using some white than it is to make it on here. So even though I drew it what I felt like was pretty big, it's still pretty small. I'm gonna use a small brush. And I'm gonna start with this lighter shade, this whitish one, and touch it to a little bit of water. And now I'm just gonna go around these seeds as carefully as I can. This strawberry is a little bit fussy, but that's fine. We can handle it. Not a big deal if you miss a seed or if you go around it too close. Don't stress. You can use a wet brush and try and take it back off a little bit. Mainly we want to be able to put some yellowish green on there later, and we want to have some white highlights too around some of the seeds. So we're just gonna start this way, but don't worry if some of them end up getting colored in a little bit. So I'm gonna leave this whole area here. I'm gonna go around all of these seeds because that is where I want it to be very light, where the light is hitting. Think about how shiny a strawberry can be sometimes, and we'll try and figure out how to make that, keep that really light so that it looks shiny right there. I'm trying to work my way down so that I don't end up with a lot of hard edges, and so I'm trying to not let the paint dry anywhere where I still need to work with it. So I'm doing a little bit and then coming back and working to keep the paint wet as possible. I'm gonna do really light lines around these seats so that there's a little definition there. And then using my brush with just water, I'm gonna blend that color out just a little bit so it just looks a little bit blurry. Because we're not gonna leave this whole area completely white, just want it to be lighter. And now I'm gonna add in some of this watery red. I just want it to be really bright across this whole middle. The top and the bottom will be darker, but this middle part is where it will look like a true strawberry color. And because we painted around these little dots, if the paint spreads, it shouldn't spread into areas that are still white paper. It'll just spread into places that are already wet, which is handy. So we don't have to worry too much about accidentally painting over a seed or something. Okay, before I paint up much higher, I'm gonna get the first green put down for the leaves. So let's do a light green. We'll do a light green and a dark green, and then we'll probably add some green to this dark purplish red to make the deepest, darkest green. So there's a light. I'm gonna put a little bit of this turquoise-ish greenish into there, just to deepen it a little, and then a tiny bit of brown. I'm not going to make the mistake I made yesterday where I just kept adding too much brown. So that's a good lighter green, and let's do something a little bit darker with this one. And I like that turquoise, this color here. And this time I'll add a little black to that one. Now I just want to paint on the light one, this lighter green with some water. I'll start up high because down here is still a little bit wet, and just fill in without dipping back into the paint very often. I want it to be pretty light. We can always make it darker. We can make it lighter. It's just much harder to make it lighter again. touch that red, but I think it's gonna be okay. I'll just have to add more green down here in a few minutes once this is drier. Okay, now this red we haven't used yet, so I'm gonna put a little of that in the middle, straight across this middle band. And my paper's buckling a little, which means the paint is all gonna pool over on one side. The way to handle that is to tape it down. That helps. Or if it bothers you, you can buy watercolor paper that is a pad, a stack. So it's attached on 4 sides. That glue that comes at the top of a watercolor pad is all the way around except for one little opening. So you can pull the sheet off when you're finished. It doesn't bother me. I actually kind of like it. Kind of like trying to work with it. It's a little bit of a challenge. And I don't feel like I'm ready to spend the money on the watercolor paper that comes in a pad like that. So I'm just working with it. Now I want to try a little of this dark down at the bottom while there's still time for it to blend. While it's still wet up above, and it'll blend up a little bit. And this whole left-hand side of the strawberry is going to be darker than the right-hand side. And the top up here is pretty dark, up inside, up in the shadow of these leaves. Oh no. I'm going to use the darker green now up here. You can really tell what's dry and what isn't by just barely touching the paintbrush down, and if it spreads, you know it's still pretty wet. If it doesn't spread, then it's really starting to dry. But there's not much on here that's very dry, so I think I'm gonna stop. I do want to just do a little definition on the outside of this seed here. And this one to show the edge of the strawberry. So while that's drying, instead of going away and drying it, I think we should start the letter T. And for T, I want to do a turnip. Turnips are kind of same shape as a beet. They're a root vegetable. They have the same pointy root and the same greens. But what I like that's different is that they're purple around the top near the stem, and then they have a nice band of white, and then they're kind of brownish yellow down towards the root. So I think that might be a good challenge. After the turnip, the next letter is U, and the only thing I could find was an ugly fruit, which kind of, in painting terms, it looks a little bit like a green tangerine. So we'll save some room there for that, and I'm gonna do the turnip here without painting much of the greens. So let's put the root kind of going this way. It doesn't have as big of a ball. It almost, the root almost just comes out here. And then the top is a little bit flatter. Less of a ball shape at the top. And then the greens, we'll just do like some hints of greens going up like this. So we're gonna do a kind of a dark, deep purple here. We'll let it blend a little bit, and we'll do some yellows down here. I'm gonna make it a little more squared off almost. And I don't wanna wash those strawberry colors out, so I'm just gonna use the side of my paint box. So the purple is kind of a reddish purple. So I'm gonna take a dark, kind of a midnight blue, and add some red to it to make purple. And then we'll need, I'll use this old green, and I'm gonna make this, turn this into that brownish yellow. So I'll get a lot of yellow on my brush. It's still kind of a greenish yellow. I think that's fine. I'm gonna add a little bit of brown to it. And I'll use this brown, and then I'm also going to just use the yellow straight out of the box. I'm gonna put some here. And I think I just want, yeah, I think that's good. So the purple, it's gonna be up here. I want that to be a little more red and a little less watery. Put more on there. Now I'm going to paint, just paint with some water along this middle part. I don't want it to go all the way down here to the yellow, so I'm just gonna put water at the middle. And then now I'm just going to bring this color down and let it touch that water and do its magic. I want more color up here. Definitely want it to be darker up here than it is now. Okay, now I'll switch over to the bottom, and we'll start with yellow down there. And this brown. And then just with water on a brush, I'm just gonna spread that up a little bit. I don't want it to touch the purple yet, so I'm not gonna go that far. Now I can see that I still need it to be darker up here. Just gonna put some more paint on and let it dry up there. And now I can soften this edge between them a little bit. And I can put a little bit more yellow along the root. And I'm gonna put a little of that purple down there too for shading. And let's do a little bit of a stem. Use this brown. And some of the green can be up here. I'm gonna use a little bit more of this brown down here at the root, and I'm gonna make it darker with some black. I want a little bit more depth to the leaves. I'm gonna take this dark green and put a little bit of more black with it. It's a little bit grayish now, but I think I can add in some more shadows. It's so hard to know when to stop. but I'm gonna stop now. Usually when I think to myself, should I stop now? Usually that's the time to stop. If I don't stop right then, I regret it later. So I'm gonna stop now. And it looks like the strawberry is not dry yet over here, but I think we can do a little more with the leaves now. I try and blend out these places where the red really crept in. And I think the only thing I want to add is some darker green, which means mixing up a little bit more of this darker color. Light green and a little bit of this turquoisey green and a teeny dab of black. Let's see what color that actually is. It might be pretty good actually. It looks like black to me right now, but I think on paper it's gonna look like dark green. So I have to let this dry now because there's more shading to do on the strawberry itself at the top and the bottom with this darker maroon, and then a little bit of work to do here and then the seeds. So I'm gonna let it dry and I'll come back for part 2.